Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. I'm Agi Keramidas and my mission is to inspire you to rise up, grow, stand out and take action towards the next level of your life. I interview leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs, authors, exceptional people who can and will inspire you to improve your life. Tune in for 2 episodes each week and make sure you subscribe to the podcast to get the episodes as soon as they are released. In today's show, it is my real pleasure to speak with Tiffany Nguyen. Tiffany, you are a spiritual life coach, a speaker, and a doctor of pharmacy. You help busy professionals and sensitive high achievers reconnect with their truths and live authentically. You bring a unique approach to one's self-transformation journey, combining practicality and spiritual wisdom to guide them towards clarity and confidence in who they are and lead them to inner peace and happiness. Tiffany, welcome to Personal Development Mastery. It's such a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you, Agi.
Shall we start with some background? And actually, I wanted to start with your story, which has many interesting points. So you immigrated to the US when you were 16. And so do you want to share with us the harsh realities that you figured out? And first of all, why you did that in the first place?
So it's quite very common in, I would guess, developing country for kids or middle class going up to plan to study abroad. So I'm from Vietnam, and it's a very common goal for student if you have adequate, if your family is okay financially, and you do good academically, usually it's planned. Everybody like to orient the student or their children to have a plan to study abroad, because the higher education, either in Europe or in America, has much higher value compared to university degree in Vietnam. So, it's always coming out of the intention to have a better life. So education is a very, very high priority in Vietnam, and very high pressure. So I was lucky to do well in school, and my family at the time was be middle class. So I was always be under the impression that I was meant to study abroad, and it was just depending on the time. So at that time, I was lucky to got a visa to the US and before Europe. So I went to the US by myself. That's just usually the nature of studying abroad. You should go by yourself.
Sure.
And for somebody, I guess it's very common, but for somebody like me who never been out of the country before or travel anywhere without my family, I never realized how difficult it is until I actually do it. So I think it's a lot of things in life. It's when you don't know exactly what it is, you just have an idea, but you don't know what's going on until you actually do it. And it just came as a shock, especially as a teenager. I don't really do research before I came here. I didn't think it was a choice. It's either Europe or America, I have to go study. So I didn't do a lot of research. So it was very difficult when I came over to the US because I didn't know the culture or English. So I didn't know the language either. So I came over, and everybody at school was thinking I was mute and deaf because I couldn't understand and I couldn't respond. So I was treated differently.
Yes.
And I went to a high school and that neighborhood, and I was almost I feel like a very, very minority, and most of them were white different place. And I didn't see anybody like same color with me or same culture with me. And it's very hard. So it's very isolating experience. For me, particularly, one of my biggest fear is loneliness. So when I was pushed into a situation that was very isolating, that I had nowhere to run but to actually feel it. And I did everything in my power to just run away from the loneliness. And it's just like crippling depressions and isolating. So that's very difficult.
You had to face it
otherwise,
and when it is your biggest fear as well, and you can't avoid it anymore, and you face it. So maybe I would like you to tell us, how does that feel when you face your greatest fears?
Actually, I didn't actually face it when I was 16. It was just too much.
Sure.
It was just too much to try to survive and, try to adapt to the new environment. So that's why I was like, get into a lot of like unhealthy relationship just to not being alone. So I was spend time with anyone who would pay me any amount of attention just so I don't be alone. Because my mind is not a very good place when I was being alone. So that bring me to, eventually life got better. I learned the language and I got better at my study, and I graduated with bachelor degree, and I plan to move to a different state and pursue a doctorate degree in pharmacy. And so it didn't hit me until much like a decade later, when, you just suppress all of that thing deep down. And then a decade later, I was in graduate school for my doctorate degree, and I was engaged, and everything was just fine, but I was just miserable. And one day, my best friend was asking me, she would make an off comment, like she wished to have a relationship like mine. And I was like, it wasn't that great. I don't know what you're talking about. But then, coping mechanism immediately kicked in. They're like, I probably to have cold feet, probably normal, maybe more normal for guy, but I have it. And it was I'm still today, I'm very grateful that my best friend would just know when I'm bullshitting and just look at me and ask very honestly, like, why would I think that? And I was like, well, I was miserable and I'm just very exhausting to do everything perfectly. I have to go to school and go to work part-time, and also taking care of a lot of things in the house, and it was exhausting. And then it was like, it's just a time that I would just opening up and talk her about my past, about how I got into unhealthy relationship and I hated myself, basically. I just think I didn't deserve anything, just waiting for bad karma to return to the other shoe to drop, because I felt like I was just a terrible being. And it was a beautiful moment of vulnerability, because she also opened up and shared about her own past. And it made me realize that we both adamant about each other's happiness. And at the time I didn't believe it. It took me a few months later when I was like driving along and have some time for myself to think. And that's when the epiphany sort of came to me. If I switched place with my best friend, I would never even thought to consider her anything less, or to even think of her anything less. So I realized I was too hard on myself. And that started to forgive whatever mistake I make in the past. And that self-forgiveness was actually what kickstarted my whole spiritual journey. When I self-forgive, and it was just really this relief of, not carrying that burden anymore. But also that this big clarity of like, okay, I'm not really happy in my life, and just look back to see what I really want and what I don't. So I broke off the engagement. I finished my degree because I do like medicine, and going forward. And after that, I found my teacher. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you two things. First, this transition when you had that moment, that conversation with your friend, and you realized that your realization that you had, was that a short? I mean, did it happen in a short amount of time, or did it take you a long time to process it until you reached that thing, or was it one of those moments or days that you say, "Oh my God, I have." Everything is so different now in my outlook.
I think everybody's journey is a little bit different. For me personally, my journey is gradual. Like for a whole decade, from the time that I immigrated to
Yes.
the US to the time that to the time that I had that conversation with my friend, is a decade. So in the whole decade, it was just like suppressing whatever emotion and just move on and do whatever task. So it's more of the it's very common with like high achiever. So just like regardless of what I'm feeling, I just have to have a goal in mind and just go and achieve it. And just not really processing a lot of emotion. It's more like a suppress. And when with my friend, even with the conversations, it was so much easier to feel love and compassion for my friend compared to myself. And it took me literally, I would say it was few months later. So I guess there was just something in that conversation. There was just this vulnerability to know that I wasn't alone. Like I wasn't, like everybody makes some kind of mistake in their life also. So I wasn't alone. And it took that, I guess it took that stability in my life at that time also. And that few months later, when I have a moment to breathe, being myself, and that's when the insight came. So I would say it's a gradual process. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. You answered my question. So tell me, Tiffany, about those when you started then this spiritual journey, or your looking within, as you said. What were the first steps in that journey? How did it look like? Did you have were you a spiritual person before that? Did you have any thoughts or questions about that? Because it's interesting when we say I begin a journey, I'm always interested to find what was going on before the journey began.
So I think in Vietnam, is the culture is very spiritual in the first place. But it wasn't like more about yourself. But in Vietnam culture, is very spiritual. And like we discuss spirituality, like 100% of Vietnamese have ancestorship. And we always believe in something beyond here. So we believe in ancestor. So I grew up Catholic. And then when I go to college, I became agnostic. I fell out. And at first I would become atheist, just taking so many ancient history and civilization. I'm like, wow, religion, okay. And then I become agnostic because of the culture. So it was, so I guess like there's always like that element of spirituality. So my journey is, I think what helped me the most gonna be awareness. Like just this awareness that, okay, I'm not very happy. And once I'm aware of a emotion or a problem, then I will start thinking about how to find a solution for it. But I didn't have any kind of practice to actually start anything with the journey. No.
And so during your journey, how long did it take you to meet your teacher? Because if I understand correctly, he was a very big change in your journey.
Yeah, he changed my life. I would say that my journey started with myself first, with the self-forgiveness first. So first, like the most beginning element going to be awareness. And then after that, when I make a decision to self-forgive, forgive myself, then that really kickstart a lot of things. That really take off a lot of things. So after the self-forgiveness, there is like, I guess like a few months when I'm really looking to myself to see like, what am I, like who I was anymore. And I found out I was completely lost. I have no idea who I was anymore. I didn't know what exactly what I wanted and what I actually was afraid of. And so a few months later, that's when I stumbled across. But I always knew that at the time I wanted to learn meditation because I always heard about meditation benefit.
Yes.
And for 3 years I tried it and I never succeeded. I just fell straight asleep.
Actually, I want
it was very exhausting.
I want to ask you about that, what you just said about succeed, because I suppose you hear that often. It's difficult to succeed in a way, as far as I can understand it, because it is not something tangible that you can say that, okay, I have achieved that. It's something you're going to achieve, something that you don't really know what it is.
Right. I think at the time, so for all those 3 years, even when I was being miserable, I would just like to try meditation to get this some kind of peace. And it was just like this benefit I've been talking about. So for me, it was like, yeah, I want to try meditation, but I don't know how it's done. And I try, like, I look at, YouTube tutorial and everything, and I just go straight to sleep every time I try because I was so tired from my workload of the day. So back to the transition. So I stumbled upon like a very 2-minute interview of Huffington Post with my teacher, and he was talking about you can meditate anytime, anywhere, and I'm like, what? And it was just something click, and so I actually have to track. I have to do research to see who this monk was and everything. And it took me 2 weeks to figure it out. And luckily, he does have a lot of online classes, big community. So I was able to take the classes and practice meditation. So I would say it's really the saying from Lao Tzu is very true. Like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So I did not get a lot of things. When I was starting to get more into spirituality, I read books from Dalai Lama, Eckhart Tolle, and it was just dry for me. I just didn't get it. It's just logically, I kind of get it, but I don't really get it. I don't really understand it. So it was very, very dry. It took my teacher for me to understand a lot of the wisdom and to understand how to do meditation. And the end goal wasn't inner peace. It wasn't Zen. It's nothing like that. So when you actually practice it, the experience is nothing Zen. It's nothing Zen.
That's why I was asking you earlier about the success, this experience that it is written and many of us read that there is this experience that can be attained, or a state, or
I would say for meditation, the I guess sometimes when you can have a very good experience in the beginning, when your mind is already in chaos and suddenly it's settled down. So it's good. It's a very noticeable thing. But after you practice for a while, you kind of don't have that kind of blissful, state of Zen. But for me, it's the effect is more subtle. So you will see it more when challenging time comes up. And if you keep up with the practice, you can see how, when that happens. So after I was in my practice for at least a year, and I was starting my job, and it was very stressful in retail. And also my family also was in chaos also. So everything was in chaos in my life. But even through that, there's that sense of peace. There is that sense of groundedness that is very palpable, that I can feel it. And I realized not everybody feel it. And it was all thanks to my practice of not losing myself. So the meditation practice really helped to increase the awareness and maintain that awareness. So, it's just like when you brush your teeth every day, it doesn't make a difference if you do it one day. But if you do it every single day, then it's really have a snowball effect. So just especially the effect will show the most clear when challenging times comes out, when everything is in chaos and you don't lose that sense of self. And that's how my meditation practice helped. Yeah.
Would it be accurate to say what you just gave me as your description? Would be accurate to describe it as being in control of your emotional state rather than on a difficult situation, as you said? Is that what you mean, or is it something completely different?
Not exactly controlling it, because you letting it more like you letting it go, and it's more of increasing the awareness of it.
Sure.
So I think it's a very common analogy in meditation and Buddhism. Like when we're in the river, we just get swept away with it. We get overwhelmed with it. But when we see the river, when we're outside of it, then we're not being get swept away with it. So very similar with thoughts and emotions. When I'm not being overwhelmed by it, I don't I just see them. Like the awareness to help me just seeing them. I don't control them. They still come. The thoughts still come. I still feel angry. I still feel frustrated. I still feel anxious and all kind of stuff. But the intensity is much less, and that awareness just help for the emotion don't take over me. Like it's just like the anger don't just run me, and I would just lost it. So I guess in some part, I do kind of have some control, but take the driver's seat back. But I'm not like trying to control what I actually feel. It's just more naturally.
I realized the moment you started giving your answer, I realized that using the word control was a mistake. It was not what I meant, but it sounds like something else. Absolutely.
Yeah,
so thank you for your answer. It was exactly made me realize what you mean. Can I ask you, so from going through this transition yourself and with these learnings and realizations, how did you then transition into starting to teach that to people or want to help people with their own journey?
So I do not teach meditation because I believe, from my experience, people should find authentic master with true lineage and go follow a certain path, because that's much more structure, much more. They are the true master, and they understand much deeper knowledge. I can point out some practice that I do every day, but I don't teach meditation. I don't have that depth of knowledge and experience to teach that, and that is not authentic for me to just I teach meditation because I practice this for years. So during that time when I was having a lot of chaos, when I had my full-time job as a pharmacist, and it was so stressful. It's one of the top 10 U.S. profession with high suicide rate. So it was very stressful, and I lost some of my colleague and professor to it. And my family at the time was also we have having a lot of conflict, so there was a lot of chaos. So during that chaos time, I had that sense of peace, and I had that sense of not lost. Like that sense of self is strong. Like even during argument or conflict with my family, I still have my own boundary. Like I still know myself, and I find that very precious. Like it's a very good feeling. It's not like you jumping up for joy or anything like that. It's not that kind of excitement, but that's kind of like calm groundedness. And I find that I hope it will just come out of the wish that I hope everybody feel like that. I hope everybody have that kind of sense of clarity of not lost anymore. And so that started my passion side project to just help other people to basically, a lot of people have very similar, not exactly the same situation with me, but very similar feeling of, of being miserable before and not knowing what we're missing and just want to feel better, but don't know what exactly they're missing. And it's most of the time, it's the confusion. It's most of the time is when we already lost who we are. We just get lost in the busy life of achieving everything and checking all the boxes and just living for whatever,
everyone else.
for everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I would start helping with other people with that one, because I realized one of my strengths is I can listen to their story, their behavior, and I can point out their thought patterns. And I can pinpoint the thought patterns of how they get to that point and why they get to that point. And it's most like now you have like a big picture. So like, okay, so then you can shift it. It's like once we are aware of the thought pattern, we can realize, okay, I don't really want that pattern. I want to shift it, and you can. And so that was just that process that I help people to look at how they get to this point and why they get to that point, and then to help them also to shift it, to see a different perspective. And that's all it comes down to. It's like our life, we run through so much without perception. Without perception, we judge things differently, we make different decisions. And once that change, our whole life would change. So I would help people would start from the very roots of things, the perceptions.
You're so right, and it's the best place to start, because if you start anywhere else, you're leaving the root cause of anything. It's not a long-lasting change if you change it further down the chain, shall we say. I wanted to, you mentioned earlier on about being authentic, or if you said that about meditation, and actually I wanted to ask you your thoughts. There was something that I read on your website, and I will quote you on it, because it really resonates with me. You say, by living my truth, I inspire others to start their own transformation. So I want your comment on that then.
Yes. So once I simply just really live for who I am, and I think it's really come with the process of discover who you are. So once I came to that, and I'm just living day to day, a lot of my close friends, people outside would not notice anything different, but close circle, they would notice there's this kind of glow, like there's this genuine happiness, a genuine joy that flow out. And they were like, yeah, what are you doing differently? And also they would just inspire, because it was, like, for me, like, I naturally very brutally blunt already, but once I went through this process, my boundary becomes stronger. Like, I know what I want and what I did, but also all of my relationship, if with everybody, improve. Like, I become much more open, more vulnerable, but also, it was just such a strange balance. Like, at once you are both open and vulnerable, but also another time, like, you're very, like, I was very sure, like very grounded and very calm. And people can just feel it. People can just, like, would just feel like things are different, that everything is come out like it's very sincere and very genuine. And they would just, I think that's a beautiful thing about human being. Like, once I'm open and very vulnerable with my close circle, they also very become the same, and they would start to saying, like, yeah, I was miserable. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I knew that I want to do something different, but I don't know what. Like, all of that started to come out, and it was just very easy to say, oh yeah, you just have to, figuring out, this pattern and how you get to this point. And so that's when, like, help inspire people to go down the same path of rediscover themselves also, to reconnecting with what they have forgotten about themselves. So yeah, like when you just live authentically, everybody will around you will feel it, will actually feel it, even though it's not something tangible, but people will notice. People will notice. And it's really an opportunity for them to be the same, because once I think we all have this experience, like when we're in the presence of somebody that's so comfortable being themselves, they don't have to put up a facade or, you know, like pretend to be anything else. They can just be themselves. And that's very appreciated by a lot of people, that they don't have to do or be or pretend anything. They just be themselves with any emotional state that they're in. And that's good.
It's one of the most liberating things, I believe. It does require a level of being able to accept that being vulnerable, and because many of us have been taught otherwise, that showing vulnerability is a weakness, which and similar with authenticity. If your authenticity does not fit within a structure or a box or a set of rules, many people have been programmed to consider that unnatural, or I'm weird, or I'm not. And they don't realize that there's nothing wrong with that. The wrong thing is really to blend in with everyone and lose your own individuality and who you really are inside your soul, inside your being. And when you express that, of course, other people see something, maybe they can't explain it, but it is something very attractive or inspiring, if you want.
Yeah, I think it is human nature, because we do want to belong. So we would do anything to just belong. It's just how we are wired to survive. It's just human nature. But I think everybody that's going through the process of knowing who they are or rediscovering who they are, the side effect of it is naturally you have more compassion, because once we see ourselves, and we are also very dynamic being, you know, we have many different sides of us, and not all of them are pretty. And when we just see that on ourselves and we're accepting, it is so much easier to see other people are also dynamic and also complicated being, and also they also just want the best thing for them. You know, everybody just trying to do their best, and there was just this acceptance and compassion, and just very non-judgmental. Like once we open, then we are open for other people also, and that hold the door for them to just be comfortable and to share. You know, so that's the part of being vulnerable with the right people. You know, because it's very easy to get hurt, and you know, so that's where good discernment come. You know, like we need to have enough wisdom to have the discernment. But for most of the time, in general, if we're someone that very genuinely open, is comfortable to be open ourselves, and we don't feel judged about it. That's the beauty of, you know, I guess awareness, or you know, when you go through this process, everybody feels the same way.
Tiffany, I wanted also to ask you about your happiness blueprint. So do you want to explain, to share that with me?
Yes. So it's mostly about how to actually have, like, what a happy, fulfilling life will take off on. And it's come down to basically 4 aspects of yourself in your life. So first gonna be the most basic one is like needs, like a necessity needs. Like nobody gonna think about happiness when they're starving. So as long as we have this physical needs being met, it's not like we have to be living in a mansion, but we need to have this kind of security. Of you know, having, like, we know we're not gonna go hungry, we know shelters, we know we have food and clothes for the day tomorrow. That's kind of basic security is needed for us to feel for us to allow us to have space and freedom to explore more other things.
Yes.
So we need that basic one. So our basic needs to be met. And the next one is actually gonna be our purpose or passions. And it's not like the life purpose that we're gonna be like a savior, or it doesn't have to be one thing. It's sometimes gonna be a lot of things that we're interested about.
Yes.
It could be the hobby. It could be that we volunteer for something. So and that's give us meaning. So anything that give our life certain kind of meaning. Like for me, for example, like for me, like I don't have any dream of discovering cancer cure or anything grand like that, or saving the world. But like I enjoy volunteering with humane society, like rescuing dogs. So something like little things in life that give us meaning, and that is what make our life very meaningful. So that can be perception change, but that also come up with our interest, like our natural, like we usually like to do something, like service or whatever. So that part of us that's very purposeful, very meaningful.
Yes.
And we need that to feel certain kind of fulfillment. We don't just veg out or on Netflix or like going shopping on Amazon and just giving out for charity, and that's going to bring us meaning. No, we actually have to do something that align with both what we like, one of the causes of close to our heart, and also something we find meaningful. Then that's usually help us. That's that one aspect of it. So that's two aspects. The third one is going to be relationship, and not just any kind of relationship. Like it doesn't matter if we have like 5,000 friends on Facebook. No, you don't count. The one that is actually matter, like the one that actually make us feel supported, the one that we can be genuine in, the one that we can be vulnerable in. They also give us that kind of strong network, because nobody going through life alone. Nobody gonna make out alone. We all relied on somebody at some point. Just like in our childhood, we rely on our parents to take care of us. Yes. But in our adulthood, we need companion, we need other people. It's not necessarily that, which is like a lot of women like myself used to fall, victim to before, that when my soulmate coming through, like when I find true love, everything gonna be right in the world. It's not like that. It's this. You can have more than one, but you need at least one relationship, fulfilling, that you can be open to, you can feel supported emotionally, and that's give us that security. It could be teacher, it could be friends, stuff like that. It's got to be human. A lot of people try to replace that with relationship with pets, or they are good because pets love us. But there is this connection with another human being of sharing a journey of just life, and that is necessary. That social connection is good. Wanted or not, we human being, a social being, we need relationship to thrive. And isolations, unless it's like a specific choice, like sometimes like a meditation master, they go into a mountain and be isolated for
probably
mountains.
Not listening to this, Tiffany. So,
but I think I think I will make an argument to that. Like, yes, they're isolated, but they're not actually alone.
Right.
Like they are connected to their teacher and to their community and stuff like that. They're not like completely cut off. Like, yes, they cut off in their practice. It's such a choice, like nobody chooses to be isolated. We're not.
And what's the fourth one?
The fourth one is the most important one. It's yourself. It's your perception. It's yourself. If you, we are the center of our own universe, because we drive everything. Every decision we make is coming out of our perception of ourselves, and how we view the world, and how we think the world's gonna work, and out of our expectations. So we need that aspect. So that's gonna be like spiritual. We need to get all of that aligned. So basically, just like very cliche or whatever, like gift shop saying, you need to be aligned, body, mind, heart, and soul. Once all of that in alignment, that's your life is it's good.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with cliché. If it is the truth, it's
Right?
absolutely great.
So the soul part, the yourself part, that's the biggest part. If we usually when something goes askew, then that is like an opportunity for us to look into ourselves.
Yes.
Usually a challenging time comes, or anything of like a breakup, or when we lost our job, like any of these crack in any of these other aspects, when we don't have good relationship, or when we don't find meaning, or when we, the basically it's really hard. It's just out because we're living here on Earth, so we just need that kind of security. But everything else, like any kind of crack in any other aspect, is usually is a window for us to go to that. So I portray those aspects as like circle. So the last one would be you. It's going to be the innermost circle. That's all just anything that's not working in us is always an opportunity to look into what's not working with ourselves. There's something that we're ignoring.
Absolutely. Tiffany, I would like to ask you also some quick fire questions to start wrapping things up. And my first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
Is continually being more aware of all aspects of myself and how to be more aligned. Yeah.
And let's say you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, or maybe your 16-year-old self in your case. What's the one piece of advice you would give her?
None. I would say thank you. Keep going. Keep going through hell, but yeah, thank you.
So, emerging from this conversation we had today, Tiffany, I'm always very big on giving the listeners some actionable item, something that they could take out of what we discussed and implement it themselves. So, what's one actionable item you would give to the listener?
I would say the process is to have. I would encourage everyone to be brutally honest with themselves and have the courage to admit something that's not working or not, and curiosity of like things might be better. So keep those two things in mind: honesty, courage, and curiosity, and we're gonna take them far.
Can you elaborate a bit when you say be brutally honest? Can you be a little bit more specific? Because it sounds great, but it's not easy. You know that people don't necessarily find it easy. So how specifically can someone be brutally honest? Is there something that they can do to facilitate that?
The honesty and the courage go hand in hand, and it's more about with yourself. So we tend to be in denial in a lot of things because when it's not convenient or it takes a lot of work and we just don't want to do it, and it was just too hard, too difficult, we just don't want to deal with it. We tend to be in denial. We just tend to just brush it aside. But the honesty comes into when we actually admitting okay, this is not working, or I'm miserable, or I'm missing something and I need to figure it out, and don't sweep it under the rug and actually do the hard work. But it takes that honesty to admitting that, okay, maybe I'm not feeling that well, I'm feeling miserable. So that's honesty that need to come. But it takes courage. It takes courage to face it. Just like it takes courage for me to I thought I was running away from loneliness for a very long time. I just schedule my schedule packed with activity with other people. As long as I don't spend my time by myself, either at work, at school, or something else. But I need to admit it, even when I'm surrounded by other people, even when I was in the relationship, I was very lonely, and I cannot run away from myself. None of us can run away from ourselves. So
many people have tried, many of us have tried, but it's impossible. Tiffany, how can people connect with you and find out more about what you do?
So everybody can go to my website, spunkyspiritualist.com. I have a free guide up there for 7 steps to move on when things don't work out, and that will help introduce to like my framework, how shifting the process, the thought patterns. And I have a blog. I only have one social media, which is on Facebook, so people can follow me on Facebook. And that's it. I don't have any other social media.
That's fine. More is not necessarily better in this case.
No.
I want to thank you very much for your time today and sharing your insights and your story with me today, Tiffany. All the very best. Any last parting words?
Oh, thank you. I have a great pleasure being on the podcast. Very interesting. It's very nice to just share and be open and help people know, like, you can do it. You can do it. It's difficult, but you can do it. And it's much more... I just wish everybody would find their own inner peace and their own joy. And I hope everybody will get that feeling. So it's worth it.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and rate it on Apple Podcasts. And also share this episode with someone who you think will benefit from it. If you want to find out more about what I do and gain access to exclusive content, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. The link is in the show notes, or you can simply type bit.ly/PDM group. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.